I'm Brent Johnson, and today we've come to the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalist here in Newburyport, Massachusetts. With me is Justin Murphy-Mancini. Did I get the right order?
Oh, you got it.
Okay, make sure. We just met a little while ago, and I've been getting to know this organ, which is a fascinating little piece of history. Tell me, when and by whom was this instrument originally built?
Yeah, so this is the last surviving instrument by a local builder here in Newburyport whose name was Joseph Alley.
Okay.
In fact, he built this organ right down on the waterfront and shipped it up just a little bit up the hill here to the church. This instrument was built originally in 1834.
Okay.
It was the church's second instrument. This, despite being a church in the congregational tradition, was one of the first churches in the city to have an organ, first in 1794, and this larger instrument in 1834.
Oh, we should say the building itself is pretty old too.
We are here in the second meeting house that the church has had. It was built in 1801, and it has stood ever since. Through some fire scares, but it's incredible that it's made it.
Indeed. Okay, well, and then Joseph Alley. This is the first Joseph Alley organ I've ever.
And it's going to be the only one. Unfortunately, the other instruments that he built no longer survive.
Okay.
And so this is it is truly unique.
It is unique. Now, it's not completely original, correct?
It's not original, although much of the instrument still is Joseph Alley's pipework and Joseph Alley's bellows, and quite a bit of some of the chests are original. Of course, this beautiful mahogany case is original. So much of his beautiful work has been preserved, but it has had several iterations. And George Hutchings rebuilt it in 1889. And then in 1957, Charlie Fisk in Andover did another rebuild, and it was rebuilt again in 2012, restoring it more to the Hutchings era and adding a few more stops by A. David Moore and Associates up in Vermont.
Okay. And the console has been modernized a bit, I can see.
Yes, so this is David Moore's console.
Okay.
He and his firm built this console brand new for the instrument. All the stop knobs and the calligraphy, the keyboard itself. The pedal board is actually modeled after a John Steer pedal board that he had. So it is historical in its own way. You can tell the keys are actually quite a bit smaller than a modern keyboard. So it's David's whole ethos with these kinds of restoration projects is to make sure that as much of the instrument is conforming to historical models as you can, while not saying no to some modern conveniences.
Okay, because I was saying the draw knobs look new, but the keys, I was actually thinking maybe he had just reused old keys because they look so historically authentic.
You know, I don't know the whole story of the keys, but I do know that they are bone.
Okay.
And that he works in that medium. So
put new covers on
they
them,
may be new.
Okay.
They may be old.
Well, let's talk about the sounds and hear the sounds that are old and new. Let's just start over here in the grate.
Absolutely. So as we pull the stops, we're going to tell the history of the instrument.
Okay.
Each of the stops has its own little story, and each builder has added to the instrument over time. So it really is a record of who has touched the organ. So we'll start with the facade principle, which is of course gold painted as it was originally in the 1830s. And it is a beautiful, early romantic, wide-scaled.
Lovely.
Yeah, just that principle can give you everything you want out in the room.
Really, yeah, it's just a big warm sound, very gentle but very full.
Yes, this is definitely in the English tradition. So the voicing and the scaling tends to be a little less, robust, a little narrower, a little softer, a little smoother. Yeah. It's right on the cusp. It's not quite a romantic instrument yet, so it maintains many classical characteristics, but you can hear that is moving towards a romantic sound.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
So in contrast, we have a second open diapason,
really?
and both of these were on the original instrument. And this is a much more narrowly scaled principle. And what's really lovely about that's one of my favorite stops on the instrument by easily.
I can see.
That narrow scaling is perfect for playing earlier music. And the wider open, the first open, is great for as you go into Mendelssohn and then into you playing romantic music as well.
It's so great to have both of them on there.
And you can even draw them together. That's a sound all its own.
Yeah, it feels like a bigger, brighter diapason.
Yeah,
exactly. All right,
exactly.
wonderful.
So our other 8-foots, we have Joseph Alley's stopped diapason, which is a beautiful stop flute.
Lovely. It's
very sweet.
Yeah, very sweet. It's a little smaller than I was expecting.
It is small, and when we get to the swell and the other stop diapason, it's matched to that much smaller scale.
Interesting.
But this room is not so big that even a very small stop can't speak. And you imagine that originally these would play voluntaries, and those voluntaries, especially for the folks who were still skeptical about the organ in congregational and Unitarian worship, soft stops mean that it's not going to get in your way, right?
That makes sense. Don't want to scare people off.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
Right.
Although there was a more conservative minister in town who described this organ as a box of whistles. Very proudly, that's a story that people here at the church will tell.
Okay.
So we have George Hutchings added a dulciana to this division, which is very gentle, but it's that typical American string stop.
Yeah, you said that was 89 that he 1889.
Yeah, 1889.
So yeah, that makes more sense. That's something you would find on
that's a much more typical, especially on a choir division. But what you can do is it helps broaden the tone when you add the 8-foots together, right? And if we pull the second open, that now we're getting a different kind of breadth of tone.
Yeah,
right?
we're getting much more romantic is what I'm
and that's the nice thing, that having 4 8-foot stops on the grate that's a very broad tone. It still doesn't quite sound like, an 1870s, 1880s instrument, but that's good.
We're not getting a big woolly sound here.
It's not. It's not woolly. Sometimes I say I do wish I had some kind of clarabella or something here, but I'll take the fact that would be totally anachronistic.
Right. Okay.
All right. So if we move up, we have a very bright, very forward 8-foot octave. If we pull it with the first open diapason, we're already getting to, full congregational accompaniment.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's a fairly large.
It is. It's giving it a lot of brightness on top of what I now understand to be the big diapason.
Yes,
even though it's not very big.
Even though it's not very big, it's pretty big, and so we'll be able to contrast it with the principal on the swell, which is great. If we keep going up, we have 2-foot 15th, which is a principal stop. But I was saying earlier, before we started, that it sounds very flute-like up moving up into the upper register, so it can play double duty very effectively. But if I switch that to the flute chorus, it doesn't. It's not.
Yeah.
It feels okay in both roles.
You can tell it sits right in between the principals
It's
and the flutes.
literally right between. So we skipped over our 4-foot flute,
Yeah, let's hear this.
which is a lovely stopped flute.
That's beautiful.
And with the 8-foot flute together, this is an excellent chorus.
Yeah, lovely. Very clear. Again, not nearly as big as the principals.
Yes,
It's very gentle for the great, but it sounds lovely.
Yes, exactly. And so the principals can give you that power to accompany congregational singing, whereas in solo repertoire, thinking historically, voluntaries and character pieces, those soft stops are, they charm the ear rather than overwhelming it. Yeah.
Okay, so
Continuing
going
on,
from
so
there.
yes, so now we have the mutations. Of course, this coming from the English style originally had 2 tierce mixtures and not a quint mixture.
Okay.
So we have a full cornet décomposé here.
Okay.
And it goes, this one, of course, is full compass all the way down.
Okay.
All the way down to the bass, and it's quite powerful.
Yeah, it sits right on top of those principles. Now I'm seeing how that all builds up together there.
Yes, exactly. And so if you pull the flutes with it, then you have, maybe without the tiers, this is a great congregational. Your last verse of something that you don't need much more than that.
Yeah, that's just those 6 ranks is enough to fill the room.
Yes.
All right.
What's truly astonishing, given its long history, is that the instrument from its very beginning has always fit the room very well. Ali voiced everything very carefully to fit this particular kind of meeting house, and then nobody futzed with it too badly to make it too loud or too soft in the end. So finally, we skipped one. So there is a 16-foot Borden that I believe is a Hutchings.
Okay.
And that gives you quite a powerful chorus.
It's a gentle flute, but it adds a lot of weight to the chorus there.
It really does.
Yeah.
It's a very effective stop.
Okay.
Lastly, here on the great, we have a 4-rank mixture, the quint mixture.
Okay.
And that was a bit of Ali, a bit of Hutchings, a bit of Andover. But what's great about it is that it's a fairly brilliant mixture. It's a very classical sounding mixture. It's not at all romantic. And so for Baroque music, you couldn't ask for anything better. But it still will blend with the whole instrument and not overwhelm. So here's our 16-foot plenum, and I'll add the tiercin.
Yeah, that's quite a sound. I want to hear just 8/4 2
Two,
mixture.
yep,
just to hear how
absolutely.
the mixture caps. Yeah, so it gives us a lot of brightness, but it's not nearly screaming. It's not loud.
Yes.
It's not really loud at all.
There's nothing on this instrument that screams or yells. It's still just gentle enough.
Just adding a lot of color. Okay.
Yeah, and with that many stops on the grate, you have almost every combination you could ever want, right? Really, the only thing you lack is that big solo romantic flute, which would probably stick out terribly
It might,
here,
yeah,
you know.
And a few times you'd use
it, and not for these very polite Unitarians.
Okay, and we have a reed here in the
Yes,
crate
we
as
do.
well.
We have a Hutchings trumpet.
Okay.
You know, instruments of this period could have, you know, English instruments have trumpets, but often the very earliest American organs largely wouldn't, and so this is a slightly later edition.
Okay. Okay, it was a little brighter and thinner than I was expecting.
Yeah, it's not a super wide-scaled trumpet,
okay.
and I wonder, you know, it's hard to know, and I would you know, ask some organ builders more, but Hutchings seems to have scaled his additional pipework to what was already there,
Okay.
right? And a big wide trumpet might not fit quite as well, but it sits right inside of the chorus very, very smoothly.
Just blends in there very well.
It blends.
Okay.
You know,
Amazing.
it's not gone, but it's not sitting on top, right? Yeah.
Everything's just really works out well to work together there.
Yes, it's ensemble all the way down.
Okay, very good.
With just enough color and interest from the different stops, so you can use them as solos.
Okay, well, that's all our great then.
Yeah,
we
so
go
let's
over
move
to
up to the swell. And the wonderful thing about the swell is that it is a full chorus on its own, so we can contrast.
Okay.
And the contrast is excellent. So one thing that is also true about this instrument, being built in 1834, it was originally a G compass instrument, not a C compass.
Really?
So it had, and the swell was much smaller. It was not a full compass swell.
Gotcha.
And Hutchings, you know, by 1889, that was terribly old-fashioned.
Sure.
So Hutchings, you know, put it to its current 56-note range, C to G. Every once in a while, I wish I had the A, but you know, a small price to pay, and set the C compass. But the principle here on the swell is from tenor C, and the lowest octave is its own set of Borden pipes that are separate from the stop diapason, which is nice because then when you pull the stop diapason to give it a little bit more power, you actually have something to work with.
Okay. That's yeah, lovely and smooth. And about the volume, I would expect, I guess, having a first and then a second, and this is like, sort of like a third now.
Exactly, and
step down in
the
scale.
swell is at the top of the case, so it is speaking above our heads. So it actually matches the volume of at least the second fairly well.
Okay.
But you can hear that this is a little bit more, you know, forward when it speaks. And this is just a little bit. So it really is still a third principle.
But it's got that right edge to it. The second. Okay.
So then we also have another alley stopped diapason, which of course we can compare with the great. Again, just very sweet,
Yes,
very
exactly.
charming, and not so different, but just different enough.
Interesting. I wonder if, as they were later builders, were thinking the Dulciana would be sort of your softest stop. If alley was more like the flutes are going to be your soft,
Exactly.
disappearing
Yes.
sounds.
The stop diapasons would have been the soft, disappearing. Although, I think the solitional here is the softest stop. with the box closed,
that's really amazing.
it gets really, really soft.
Okay.
And David Moore and his team, they added shades to the back of the box, which gives it a little bit more expression.
Sure. Okay.
So
nice.
we're hearing the most expressive version of the swell.
Okay.
And Hutchings added a Celeste.
Oh.
I had said when we started that it was new, but I found out that it was actually a Hutchings Celeste.
Okay. I find that fascinating to know sort of when in time people thought a Celeste was an important stop in an organ of this size.
Yes.
'Cause usually in the 1880s it wouldn't show up until the organ was much bigger. But maybe this organ was just big enough that was.
I think this organ was just big enough, and this was this was the church of the shipbuilders and the merchants. And they had money to throw around.
Okay.
I mean, they built this building in 1801. It's a large meeting house. It's almost similar to Old South down in Boston.
So I guess they were getting all the luxuries they could squeeze into the console.
They certainly were. All right, and then as we move up, we have a companion to our big octave, but a much narrower and very characteristic 4-foot principal.
Okay. Yeah. How does that sound with the diapason over there in the swell? Yeah, that's very distinctive.
It's very distinctive. It's narrow and it's bright, but it doesn't sound, it's not gonna. It doesn't get so far away from the center that it's gonna stick out.
Yeah, it must be nice to have that as a contrast. Then.
Exactly, as opposed to this really big. And I think in that you can definitely hear a movement towards the romantic.
Yeah.
That's a different sound concept.
Interesting.
Not terribly classical. So we can also add a 15th. Again, scaled to be halfway in between a principal and a flute, a little just built just so.
And that's called a 15th?
It is called a
Okay,
15th, yes.
It adds a lot of flute quality to the top of the
It does.
chorus, but then again, it would blend really well with the flutes then.
It sounds much more fluty up there, and then you can tell down in the bottom octave it's still a principal.
Yeah, interesting.
It's a fascinating compromise and very creative to keep the instrument from getting too big and too expensive. And of course, the case has only so much space. How do you make the most out of, especially the upper work? So we skipped over my other favorite stop of the instrument, the 4-foot open flute.
Oh. Lovely.
Which is a wonderful solo stop, and for those Baroque variations where you just have a single 4-foot flute, perfect, and sounds lovely with the stopped diapason. So here is our flute chorus, with the halfway in between.
Interesting. I feel like that actually fits better there, and maybe it's because it's got that 4-foot with all that harmonic development. So
Yes, the 4-foot has a lot of harmonics in it.
Interesting.
And if you pull it all together, the chorus is a beautiful but different kind of chorus.
almost enough to accompany the congregation.
Almost enough to cut, especially because it soars right over them.
Okay.
And so it's not lacking in power. So we have a 19th, which I have been led to believe had its origins in Alley, although I don't know if it was originally a 19th. Could have been. But Hutchings definitely made it a 19th.
Oh, okay.
And this is an excellent solo stop. You know,
just the 8 and the 4 and the 19th.
Yep,
with the tremolo there.
Yeah,
lovely.
8/4 and 1 1/3 is a very characteristic and beautiful for all those ornamented chorales and things like that. We also have a sesquialtera, which means that we have a flute cornet, which of course we'll pull the principal, and this is just a nice contrasting cornet. Which I especially like to use, sort of in the tierce en taille kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very cutting, especially with that 4-foot.
Yes, yeah.
With the 15th in there, I mean, that little brighter top.
It certainly does, and you can leave it out.
A little more hollow sound there.
A little more hollow, but
useful.
What I love is that each one of the stops has something it can do in a combination, but you can take things out and not lose, characteristics or qualities. It's a terribly versatile instrument, which is great. With only 2 manuals. Another very special stop is the Cremona, which is original to the 1834 instrument, which makes it very, very old indeed, and it's a beautiful kind of clarinet type.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Glad that survived.
I'm absolutely glad that it survived. And to contrast, we have a beautiful Hutchings oboe. It still has just enough power to be almost a kind of second trumpet.
Almost, yeah. And I imagine that blends well, and you can brighten it up with the sesquialtera even, or the 19th.
Yes, this is a great combination.
Yeah, I would almost think down there that it is a trumpet, but
yeah. It's got a bit of power.
Enough growl and energy to add a lot to it. All right, very good.
And it's something that you can, if you are, playing a hymn and pulling up the volume, maybe you have a fair amount on the grate, and we can, couple in from the swell, some, and then, we add in the oboe. Especially with the box closed. It almost, in a certain way, I draw an analogy to that sort of basson au bois on a French cave, where the reed is just pulling something new out of the foundation,
So
right?
especially with the box closed where we're standing anyway, it almost just completely disappears.
It almost
and then just adds that little extra bit of brightness and
by the time the box is open, it comes to the front. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and then we have a number of pedal stops.
Yes.
Tell me about the pedal division. How's
that? The pedal started, of course, it tells its story. The original, like many instruments, had a single 16-foot This is a double open diapason made out of wood.
It's a nice big sound.
Yeah, it's a nice big sound. Hutchings added a Borden of some kind at some point, which is now a unit stop, which is 16, 8, and 4. David Moore added to what was already there to get you 16, 8, and 4. So we have 16. It's slightly more gentle. Then the 8 transitions from being stopped to open.
Oh.
So by the time you're getting up there, it's an open stop.
Flute sound, yeah.
And so the 4-foot is open. By itself.
Is that enough to give you a 4-foot solo in the pedal if you ever need it? Or
It all, if you're creative and clever about it, yes.
Okay.
And it's got quite a singing
Yeah,
tone,
that's what I
so
was thinking.
you can certainly use it, and it's a very useful when you're trying to get more out of the pedal, for contrapuntal music. And then David Moore added this 8-foot cello, which gives the 8-foot pitch a little bit more power and color, since there is no principle here on the pedal.
almost a principle-like. I mean,
He said that it's modeled after some French style cellos.
Okay.
And so that it has a little bit more of that bite to it.
But it doesn't have the edge that we might expect out of a pedal cello stop, which are usually a little bit bigger.
Right, yeah, and it's not very American.
Yeah, okay.
And so if you pull it with the 16 and 8, it's a fairly good replacement. Not having an 8-foot principle, which would not fit in this case.
Okay, sure.
And would not be so stylistically appropriate. So this is a lovely compromise.
Okay.
And then the truly masterful part of the restoration is that they added a unit reed, 16, 8, and 4, trombone, trumpet, and clarion, which is an exceptional addition to the instrument. So starting with the 16. And we're sitting right next to it, and it's got a lot of energy. And the choir has to be warned if they're singing up here that I'm going to use the trombone because they're singing right in the line of fire. It speaks right out the side of the case.
Okay.
But it is very carefully matched, and we'll get to it. But
It sounds. I was saying, it sounds old. It sounds like
I know.
they did a good job of making it a period stop.
it feels like a period stop. But if you play something romantic, even something French, you don't feel like you're lacking for energy in the bass. So here's the 8-foot trumpet. So it's extending from the trombone, but has a bit of its own
Still got a lot of power there, yeah.
Yep. And the 4-foot.
Okay. And that's not so loud that you couldn't use that as a 4-foot solo. If
Exactly.
you wanted to. But
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And together. That makes quite a bit of noise.
A lot of rumble up here. Yeah.
So when you want all of that together, and for that big moment, you've got it.
Yeah, indeed. It's great that you've got such a great pedal division. it's so versatile as opposed to just having the one that some of these organs
Exactly.
have, which usually that one is voiced very well to do more than one thing. But this must be much easier to,
Yes,
to work with.
it is. And I do plenty of coupling into the pedal because that's what this instrument is designed to do, especially pulling from the swell. Since the swell has so much available to it, you can find creative ways to make the pedal fit what you need it to do when you're not playing repertoire, perfectly suited to the 1840s.
Right.
Although, playing this instrument, it's become quite a fun process of learning more about music that would have been suited for this very particular kind of instrument.
Sort of sounds they were designing for.
Yeah, exactly. Those little voluntaries and character pieces and things like that, they come alive here in a way that they might not on a big Skinner or a Moeller or something where you have, so many colors, but none of them quite fit, right?
Okay. The console, we talked about, he did modernize some things, and you do have a combination action.
Yes, we have this Laukhoff sort of hybrid system. So here, all of the stop action is completely mechanical, but there is a motorized system that allows you to treat it like a combination action, and we have a solid state memory and all of the modern conveniences. So, we have memory levels and we have generals. They make a lot of noise, especially when you cancel. But the fact that you can treat it as if it's a truly historic instrument while still being able to do things that require pistons and a sequencer and things of that nature, it's really nice to have, and it's a compromised system, as all things are, but it works and it's great. You get to have both worlds.
As we go back around behind the case of the organ, we find the 16-foot opens back here, painted to be hidden against the wall. They're pretty big scale, but their cut-ups are low, and I guess their low pressure means they're not a huge sound. I have a walkboard back here that takes us between more pedal pipes, the cello on the right and some of the high end of the open on the left, and some in front of us, all tubed off of a chest that's somewhere else. See some new pipes added to the top of the open. Here's our cello behind us and the swell trackers. We can see some pedal reed pipes, and then there in front of us is the great chest. Back on the other side, there's the very top end of the pedal chests. The 4-foot part of the open and all of the action feeding it. So on the other side of the organ, we find panels here where we get the necessary graffiti left by the blower pumpers from previous centuries. And the old pump handle where it would have been. And then continuing on around, there's a staircase here that takes us up behind the pipework. Now we're up at the level of the grate. And there's the swell box up above us with its shades facing backwards. But we're going to step in on the walkboard. And there's where we were standing just a minute ago among the pedal pipes. And there's our swell roller boards right in front of our face. And the great pipework is in here. Now we're looking at great pipes. Principals in the front and the string, 4-foot flute. Looks like some mixtures in our 19th. And I think that's the 16-foot with the chimneys. Actually not sure. And of course, the trumpet in the back. And then here's the top of the pedal reed, which goes along the side. Full-length 16-foot pipes that have been mitered over to stay below the case. And the treble end down at our feet. So turning around and continuing up the staircase, we end up at the level of the swell. First of all, we look at the top of the 16-foot open here. And then opening the door, we can peek in and see the swell pipes. The walkboard is hinged to give you more space when you need it and let the sound out when you don't. And it seems like our slides have been hand-labeled here by somebody who needed to have that done. Sesquialtera and mixtures pipes down there at the bottom, and then the oboe here at the back of the case. Now we're looking backwards. We can see those shades at the back of the chamber with the reversing action there, open in opposite directions. And now we can't see the Cremona, so we're going to go back downstairs to the grate level, and here we are underneath the swell chest, walking between the pedal pipes and the grate pipes. Take another look down at the grate here. And as we go on across, there's a ladder here in front of the swell box, and as one ascends that ladder, you find yourselves in front of the shades. And here you can reach through, and there's the Cremona waiting to be tuned. The only way you can access it easily from this walkboard. Of course, this also gives you access to some of the great 8-foot pipes, and of course the facade for tuning right here. And now we've gone back down to the floor level, pulled off the panel with all the graffiti, and we can see the bottom of the pedal 16. And some pneumatic pull downs for the chest there. And we see our double rise reservoir here. And then we can see all the slider motors that are the electric action for the mechanical stop action. They've sort of been stashed everywhere to make the stop action work in this compact space. And more pedal action. Justin, thank you for showing us all around this 1834 Joseph Alley organ built right here in Newburyport, Massachusetts. And the only one we'll get to see, I guess, if this is the only one left.
Hey, so. But, we're glad to have it, and thank you. It's been our pleasure.
And it's been fun to learn that the word fisk is a verb in this part of the country. So, but for the most part, it's great to see that this is preserved, and I'm glad that the church is keeping it here playing.
Absolutely. So. And, I will say, it was great that Fisk came at the time that he did to do the work that he did, because it preserved so much of what makes this instrument special. Indeed, many, many instruments of this generation, this period, have been altered so much that you could not make them what they were. Yeah. And this instrument was very carefully, lovingly preserved by many generations of congregations and many great organ builders.
That helps to have people who came before who wanted to
absolutely
protect. But it's just great to walk into this room and to hear the sounds that have always been singing in here. So
absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please go down below and click the thumbs up, and make sure you're subscribed to our channel, because we still even have some more videos coming out from this part of the country. So you won't want to miss those. Click the bell to get your notifications once the new videos come out. So thank you again, Justin. This was fantastic.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
I'm Brent Johnson. Thank you for watching.